rather than have UN agencies do it. There was another negotiation in which I was deeply involved, in which basically we came up with another number. I don't remember right now what it was, but it was a political negotiation of member states. It didn't have, that the agencies did or didn't agree with. They were involved, but the decision was made by all the taxpayers represented there in the room. What was interesting in that process was that governments became more interested in implementing activities by themselves. And when you're in the UN system, you have less of this concern that happens in the bilateral program of the fact that if a government implements, they may be building their capacity, but it takes longer. I think in the bilateral program we had a shorter time horizon and were less patient with what the UN called government execution. On the instruments, two of them stood out that were mentioned, local currency and excess property. They're hard to use. Local currency isn't available in many places, but, and we, at least when I was in aid, we encouraged the use of both. But managers found it difficult to use them. So more power to people who can figure out how to build partnerships and use those resources. But a lot of people felt they were more trouble than they were worth. One of the things that we haven't really dealt with much is some early remarks that moving money fast has been one of the things that shapes the kind of acquisition that we use. I also think it undermines our ability to accomplish our objectives because some things take longer. So I'd like to hear a little bit of discussion of that. I'd also, when the 32,000 house versus the 60,000 house came up, it was a good illustration, even though it was on the admin side, of the fact that different agencies have different capacities to pay. And I think they also have a different capacity to withstand risk. I think there are some agencies that get punished more than others for taking a bad risk. I think that willingness to take risk can be a good thing, but if there are different standards and different agencies are, I had this with USAID Food Aid and WFP Food Aid, so it isn't only something that happens in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you have different standards, then you're undermining yourself all along. And I will close because I heard a presentation on Monday by Rick Hill that really got me worried actually it was on security. But in both of these discussions, I am struck by how much what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan is shaping our whole approach to whatever we do. I was so happy to hear about Peru a few minutes ago. I mean, it's like the rest of the world has disappeared. And I mean, I agree with all the statements that were made about the political U.S. foreign policy interest and short-term foreign policy interest. I don't think those are going to go away. But we need to be careful that in places where we don't have those pressures, the way in which we do business that distortion doesn't get carried over into other places, because I think it will defeat our efforts.
Thank you, Joe.
I do not agree with spending money just to spend money. That is not, that is absolutely against my nature. But there is tremendous pressure to actually move the money quickly because there are so many needs out there. And the simple fact is, in the way that things work in Washington, if Congress appropriates USAID money and I don't get it obligated, or the agency doesn't get it obligated, it's a very difficult pitch the next year to say, I want more money. We couldn't handle what we got. So, budget officers. I know you do. I know you understand. I don't preach to the choir, but what happened is, because of this tremendous push to move money, because the OE was constantly being cut and we didn't have enough people to adequately do what we should have, which is each action is individual and you do it correctly and it goes for a certain means, we said, how in the hell can we do this and move this money? And so we looked at IQCs, we increased the ceiling, because the biggest problem I had as the director of contracts, my first 2 months, were people coming in saying, we just awarded a major IQC, it's been in place 7 months, and it's up against the ceiling. It's been so popular and they've used it so much that nobody can take a 4-year contract out because it's going to break the ceiling. And I said, Who set the ceiling? It's just a guesstimate on how much we're going to spend. Let's put it up at $1 billion. Let's put it at $2 billion. I don't care. Let's not run out of money. So that was something that we had to do to move money. Grants under contracts, the contracting officers used to do all those. We said, look, we can't keep up with them. Why don't we push it to the contractor community, make them do everything that we have to do in the government, do all the procedures, report back to us, and we can move that off our plate to move the money. So listen, I'm not defending this as the ideal way to do contracting. I'm saying it was a necessity to survive. Fortunately, I'm here and I started out with good news. The agency's starting to bring talent back in. They're hiring contracts people. I went to a forum the other day. I did construction contracting in the Middle East. Not many people in aid know a thing about construction. Design, build, design, bid, build, they don't know it. I went there and I started talking to this guy. He's an engineer hired by USAID working in contracts, and he's bringing in ideas, and he said, why don't we have templates on there that these contracting officers can use? I walked out of that meeting going, man, we are on the right. We're doing some things good now, and I felt good about it. So please don't ask me to defend what we had to do. We're trying to survive. I didn't want to leave development money on the table because there are needs that the amount of money I had appropriated couldn't meet. So I didn't want to go into next year and say I get less money to hit bigger means. So that's kind of what drove that. I mean, some of the others may have thoughts about this.
Okay, please.
Hi, Laura Haig with the QED Group. I want to build on two of the things that two women had said previously about the communications. First, my bias is that I think using some more innovative, collaborative, online tools, social media, whatever you want to call it, Web 2.0 would be really helpful for USAID in thinking about sharing best practices, learning, dealing with people, obviously leaving after a year and going to different other assignments. However, I think there are some resistant to that, and just want to hear your opinions on what you think are why USAID is resisting this and using these type of tools.
I don't think USAID is going to resist it in the future with the influx of the young people. Aid will be on Facebook in no time, and we'll have a page, and I think that